your spots, I'll give you a quick preview of what's about to happen in this panel. As I hope you all will learn tonight, or maybe you already know, the Pacific Islands are not limited to the geographic or economic boundaries imposed by Western practice. This next panel demonstrates the circulation of Pacific peoples, materials, and knowledge, illustrating the expansive and dynamic nature of the Pacific as a collective of moving islands called Etoc. So without further ado, welcome.
Hi, thanks for coming today, everyone. So today our talk will be in two parts. So in the first part, Alicia will be discussing the incarceration of Native Hawaiians, and then I'll take over and talk about Ho'oponopono and Pu'uhonua within restorative justice.
So first, our route's going to take us all the way to Arizona. And you're probably wondering why. We're going to talk about Arizona from Hawaii, but stay tuned. So the discourse surrounding the prison industrial complex often includes conversations about racial disparities, inhumane treatments of prisoners, and economic sustainability and profitability. Based on this analysis, we argue that the United States imported criminal justice system within Hawaii continues to work upon settler colonial ideologies, enacting a particularly violent form of dispossession onto Native Hawaiian bodies. According to an Office of Hawaiian Affairs Justice report released in 2010, quote, the number of people incarcerated in Hawaii has increased more than 900%, unquote, between 1977 and 2008. This image shows the disproportionality of Hawaiians within the prison system, where, quote, Hawaiians are 20% of Hawaii's population, yet, quote, they comprise 45% of the inmate population. Furthermore, as this graph shows, longer prison sentences, longer probation terms, and higher rates of recidivism are only just a few issues within the long list of examples that demonstrate the disproportionate treatment of Native Hawaiians within the prison system. In addition, Native Hawaiian incarceration rates and subjects also point to a unique issue: the exportation of prisoners into continental prisons, such as the Saguaro Correctional Center in Arizona. Here's a video to explain a little more.
Saguaro Correctional Center was built in 2007 in Eloy, Arizona, as part of a partnership between CCA and the state of Hawaii. About an hour's drive from Phoenix, Saguaro was built specifically to house Hawaii inmates. Like many states who partner with CCA, Hawaii faces a shortage of prison beds, and because of challenging economic times has not been able to build new prisons. By partnering with CCA, Hawaii has been able to safely house Hawaii inmates in a medium security, state-of-the-art facility that offers a variety of rehabilitative programs while incorporating aspects of Hawaii's unique cultural lifestyle into daily life at Saguaro.
Wow, how great, right? I love the music. So by removing unwanted people from their homeland, the prison project continues the displacement of Native peoples. Deportation, however, not only relieves overcrowding within prisons, but also serves to profit the private institutions housing them. The ever-growing population of prisoners transferred to the continent also creates an economically profitable model. Privatized prisons stand to gain nearly $26 million in profits from deported inmates. The carceral system continues to displace and eliminate natives from their homelands, not only physically, but politically and culturally as well. Building upon Patrick Wolf's theory of settler colonialism, the prison industrial complex contributes by forcibly displacing native bodies, not to other parts within the island, but rather into continental prisons thousands of miles away, therefore leaving the island territory empty for settlement. Afterwards, the continued subjugation and surveillance of the incarcerated through probation and parole further continues the dispossession of Native Hawaiians and sets them up to return to prison in order to sustain the cycle. Following Wolf's theory that, quote, settler colonialism destroys to replace, the prison industrial project has not only destroyed the people in order to replace the land with the settlers, but has also destroyed indigenous justice systems in order to impose their own structures of oppression. This ideology thus creates the framework used to sustain the state and its body's dependence on the continental United States, constructing the U.S. as a necessary and inevitable repository for Hawaii's overflowing prison population, and therefore bolsters anti-sovereignty claims.
So now we'll move to the second portion of this talk, where I'll be discussing Ho'oponopono and Pu'uhonua within restorative justice. So in the last 30 years or so, there's been a push to revive the traditional practice of ho'oponopono within the greater restorative justice movement. So ho'oponopono means to make right, and it's a practice that was enacted within the ohana, or extended family. In this practice, both the person who caused harm and the person who was harmed participate in a guided mediation along with others affected by the situation. The end goal of ho'oponopono is the restoration of social bonds, the reintegration of individuals into society, and the fostering of a healthy community. This is in contrast to Western punitive systems, which are centered around rules and transgressions of rules, as opposed to people and social relations. Pre-colonial Hawaii was defined by the kapu system, a strict and hierarchical system of taboos placed on certain space, actions, and resources to be determined by the ali'i, or chiefly class. Violations of the system were punishable by death. The pu'uhonua was a place of refuge one could flee to should one commit a violation of the kapu system. So just give me a second. So Pu'uhonua o Hanano National Historic Park is an example of a traditional pu'uhonua which has been preserved. And if you visit the website for the park, you can actually take a virtual tour. And at this pu'uhonua, a priest at the temple, Hale o Ke'awe, which is pictured here, and you can like do fun things, like turn around. That's all you can do. So a priest at this temple would perform a ceremony of absolution, which would bestow upon the offender a second chance at life from the gods and allow them to return to their respective village without fear of execution. So through this place of refuge and its rehabilitation process, offenders were able to be forgiven of their transgressions and fully reintegrate as members of society. And although the kapu system has long been abolished, the modern restorative justice movement has fostered the revival of the concept of pu'uhonua. So in modern day applications, a pu'uhonua is still a place of refuge. It's a space in which individuals can enter to heal, reflect, and restore bonds to family, community, and the land. And as you can see from this virtual tour, a pu'uhonua was contingent upon its location in Aina, which means land, or more specifically, that which feeds. So for this reason, a dark, confined prison cell in the arid deserts of Arizona cannot be a pu'uhonua. It cannot be a place of true rehabilitation. And these links to Aina are realized in modern re-entry and recovery programs for Hawaiian prisoners that focus on plant cultivation and outdoor labor. As Melina Kaulukukui, a social work specialist at the University of Hawaii, describes, these programs allow formerly incarcerated individuals to spiritually restore themselves by nurturing their cultural identity, emphasizing the importance of the relationships between the self, nature, and one's spirituality, and building relationships with the community. So although we cannot return to pre-colonial times, nor should we, given the strict hierarchical nature of the kapu system, we can draw on traditional indigenous concepts and practices such as ho'oponopono and pu'uhonua. And only through the centering of indigenous practices and knowledge systems can we begin to decolonize our systems of justice and imagine alternatives to crime and punishment, retribution and revenge, and the colonial prison industrial complex.
Alright, hi everyone. My name is Henry Chen, and my paper is about blood and men and sex. So, in March of 1941, just 9 months before the Imperial Japanese strike on Pu'uloa, or Pearl Harbor, a headline flashed across the New York Times: Hawaii and its vital role in the defense of America. In the accompanying article, Harold Callender of the Times introduced the Hawaiian Islands to a continental American audience, inviting them to imagine the archipelago not only as a paradisiacal site of palms and pineapples, but as a central part of the American military project in the Pacific. Thank you. When it came to describing the racial landscape of the islands, however, Mr. Callender posed a question to his readers. But where did the Hawaiians come into this Asiatic American picture of industry, immigrants, and defense services? They are almost the least important element in Hawaii. there are only about 20,000 pure Hawaiians, and they're decreasing, though there are some 43,000 of partly Hawaiian blood, usually mixed with Chinese. They are an easygoing, trustful people, neither mercenary nor energetic, who have been pushed aside by the alien forces from Asia and America which have shaped the island's life and activities. So Mr. Calendar's observations indicate not only a rubric of blood, which was and is used to define Native Hawaiians, but also the imagined insignificance of that particular bloodline to the military project on Oahu. In this paper, I argue that logics of blood and purity sought to reproduce and sustain particular models of masculinities fit for military service in colonial Hawaii. Examining representations of blood in Hawaiian newspapers, photographs, and ephemera from the early 20th century, I ultimately advanced that blood as a metric of racial and political citizenship is inexorably bound to the project of American militarism in Hawaii. So the paper is divided into two parts. Part 1 examines how blood logics galvanized World War I and II participation, while also forging particular models of deracinated patriotic masculinities through war recruitment. And Part 2 turns to the imagined properties of blood as materially pure or impure, sort of borrowing on the theoretical framework of the anthropologist Mary Douglas. So I'm going to walk you through just two of my primary sources because we're short on time. Okay, so in autumn of 1917, shortly after the United States entered the First World War, President Wilson circulated a message across Hawaiian newspapers to drum up support for the war. President Wilson thanks the Li'uokalani, the gracious queen has set her example to all who are here in Hawaii, whether of Hawaiian blood or not, to give and keep on giving to that fine cause, the Red Cross. The president's appeal to donate to the Red Cross on behalf of the dispossessed queen, herself a symbol of Hawaiian sovereignty, reads ironic at first glance. But in fact, in one of the final public appearances before her death in November of 1917, the dispossessed queen announced her membership to the American Red